Since Tillerson's name first emerged as a possible Secretary of State, ExxonMobil shares have gained around 6%. Elaine, the question here at the State Department is whether he'll approach those high-stakes foreign policy challenges as a deal-maker first or as a diplomat.
Well, Margaret, several Republican senators, as you know, including Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, and John McCain, have come out and questioned Tillerson's connections to Russia. How will that color the confirmation fight that lies ahead for him? And also, what's the expected timeline for Tillerson to divest his holdings?
Well, it may be a tough fight. What we need to see is Rex Tillerson going to Capitol Hill and meeting privately with some of these senators to answer their questions, and then, of course, going through public hearings sometime in January. But what we do know is that the endorsements of former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice and former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates is a real boost to him. The big sticking point is going to be, can Rex Tillerson prove that he has no conflicts of interest, whether that be deep friendships that could color his decision-making when dealing with countries like Russia or Saudi Arabia, other big oil-producing countries where he is quite close to leaders, or will his own personal financial stakes possibly get in the way there? You've seen millionaires, billionaires enter cabinet positions before, but what is so different about Rex Tillerson is what a significant stake he owns in ExxonMobil, and as the world's largest oil company, all the countries that it really directly impacts. So we know that he will have to make financial disclosures on a rolling basis. There's no set date for that, but he's going to have to go through a FBI background check, answer questions from the IRS, and then he'll have about 90 days or so to really lay out a plan for how he plans to separate himself from what is over 2 million shares in ExxonMobil, worth well over $200 million. So his lawyers, his financial advisors, and the board of ExxonMobil all have to map that out.
Well, Margaret, beyond Russian ties, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut tweeted Tuesday calling Tillerson out for what he said was undermining U.S. policy in Iraq, saying Tillerson, quote, has spent his entire career putting oil company profits first and the interests of his country second. How have Tillerson backers reconciled that history he has as a deal maker with his position as a top diplomat?
Look, this is really unprecedented territory. I mean, it's well over 123 years since we've had a Secretary of State with no prior government service, and we haven't had someone of Tillerson's stature in terms of a massive corporation taking this role. So he's going to have to really clear up a lot of questions from Republicans and from Democrats. What we know with Iraq is that he was doing business with this semi-autonomous Kurdish region in the north, doing business deals directly with the Kurds. The problem is that that goes against U.S. policy of dealing only with the central government in Baghdad, because America is simply trying to keep that very fractured country together. So doing side deals undercuts the central government. Now, Tillerson is basically going to have to, theoretically, either have a policy that's totally new, that has a different vision of Iraq, or agree to contradict himself and call out other business people who basically are doing what he has done in the past, which undermines U.S. policy. Because remember, it's a central government in Iraq that the U.S. has spent so much money during this war against ISIS and trying to prop up to try to get them to establish rule of law. So what we don't know, Elaine, here, and what would answer some of these questions is we don't know what the Trump doctrine is. What is the organizing principle for how America will interact with the rest of the world? Is this about cutting deals, being very tactical in the short term, or is this strategic about positioning the U.S. for the longer term? So that's the kind of thinking we're going to have to hear Rex Tillerson articulate during these public hearings. Are his personal views, are his views as an American very different than his past actions as a business person? Nothing wrong with making money. That kind of deal making should be celebrated, many on Capitol Hill believe, but they want to know that it won't undercut the interests of the American people and American national security.
All right, Margaret, Brennan, a lot of critical questions yet to be answered. Margaret, thanks so much.